Welcome to Teacher's Log, Video 4, Habits, Friend or Foe. So that's the title of Video 4. And as someone teaching students, I have been for over 50 years, it's very clear to me how habits, things we do on a regular, repetitive basis, become hardwired, or they can become hardwired into ourselves. And this can be great. Oh, you finally learned how to ride a bike and you don't have to think about it anymore. I got the knack of it. I can do it. And this is something you've heard me talk about that has to do with the first overlay of the automatic robotic systems. I mean, it's great to pick up your instrument if you're a trombone player and think, oh yeah, I don't have to necessarily think where all these positions go. Until someone comes up to me and says, could you try it differently? Could you try a different set of positions than you're using? And if they haven't built in to their automatic robotic systems choice, in other words, having more option, they'll have to start thinking about it again. And it'll take a while, sometimes. It depends on the person. Some people get hardwired quick to habits and they're harder to break. Other people can be a little more flexible. And they can start catching on. Now, let's say you're the type that isn't necessarily very flexible at first. Okay, well then know that, okay? And slowly, but consistently and regularly, start to add other things in so you can build some versatility, quicker adaptability into your automatic robotic systems, that aspect of your first overlay. Now, it's interesting, isn't it? We can be working on something in a different kind of way, practice on maintaining our support systems and use of our air to, of course, be a medium for the expression of the music in us to come through. When we're in a heated or stressful situation, such as a very exposed piece in a very high profile concert, and that high profile concert can be you're in high school, all your parents and relatives are there, and there's a lot of the school there, or it can be in college, right? It's live stream concert going on, and you have some big exposed parts, either in a section or in a solo. And the same thing in a professional orchestra. There's always going to be the times that you're going to be challenged, no matter how experienced you are, being in a situation that produces more stress because of what's put upon you in that situation and the level that you're trying to play at. So, what to do in some of these situations? Because what's interesting, the reason why I pointed all that out about the stressful situations is we might go back to habits that we necessarily don't want. Because if they're really the ones that have the most grip on us, but they're working against us, such as certain kinds of tensions in the body or worry, right? All these things. Then what we do in that state, which is most likely a fight or flight state, isn't going to be useful for us. And we can say, yeah, but I've been practicing that other way, or I'm not doing that. But then that situation might bring some of these things out because it's a fearful situation. It is, because we're surrounded by so much judgment, which our culture is based on. And it's okay to have comparison, don't get me wrong. Okay, this is at a certain level, this isn't at a certain level. This is closer to what I want. Wow, that's much further away than I'd like. And there seems to be a lack of understanding where some of this stuff comes from. So, habit, friend or foe. We can get very, very simple with it. Let's say someone comes into a lesson and they're cutting their notes off with their tongue. Now, on brass instruments, in classical brass playing anyway, that's something that is considered a big no. You don't go dot. Now, in certain big band things and certain jazz things, that's going to be a very appropriate thing. Dang, what? That kind of an ending will be a part of that genre. And so, a lot of times, we get into habits like that because it's easier to control. So someone in high school who gets into the habit of doing that, let's say, on the brass instruments, they get with maybe, and they start getting interested in orchestra playing, and they start to study with someone who's involved in that career. And they say, look, you're cutting this note off with your tongue. Do you feel that? And the student probably says, yes, I do. And they might even say, oh, I didn't even know it. Which shows you the power of the habit. It becomes unconscious. It becomes so a part of the thing you're not noticing it. And to begin the process of saying, okay, let's go from going da to da. That's a whole other system at play. It's a whole other system at play. Because you actually have to have what's called air support, which is different than just constantly blowing air. It's the system of the body, the posturing, how certain things are held in the diaphragm, for example, that will keep that sound from not going da, da. Something has to maintain itself. Even if people say, oh, I play with no tension, I don't believe in playing with any kind of tension in the diaphragm. Okay, if that's your belief, and more importantly, if that's what works for you, something is not letting the sound drop. Okay? If you're now going da, da, some people then start adding a decrescendo. Da. Now, if that decrescendo starts to become habit, you have to ask yourself, what's leading your music making? Your habit life? Or your intention because you've worked out what the piece means to you? You've built a relationship going, wow, that kind of diminuendo that's not really how the piece goes. That's not really what I want to say. So see, this gets interesting. And this is where recording oneself can be useful. It can point out a whole bunch of things that we don't even know we're doing, that have become habit. And it gets so ingrained that we think, yeah, that's just part of the music. That sounded nice. Do. And that is nice. But what if you want to go, do? Then even if there is a slight let up in the end, it's not this kind of a decrescendo do, where it's doing that quickly or all of a sudden fades. There's a leading of the line that goes beyond that. Now, here's the interesting thing about habit. Anything can become habit. Even our great sense of musicianship can become habit or habitualized. If there isn't another kind of process of feeling, thinking, building a relationship with the music, and asking yourself, do I really want that note to do that? Now, if you really start to build the kind of relationship where, in a sense, the piece is letting you know, well, I think it needs to do this. And then you go, oh, okay. And then it puts you into the position of having to find the technique and the ways and means to support what you want to say. So it's an interesting topic, but sometimes we build habits that we really don't want and they're hard to get used to. Certain kinds of tensions because there's imbalances within our systems, our embouchure systems, our support systems in the diaphragm and breathing, our posture, certain things. Oh, there's so many to name right now, but someplace in the physical structure, and of course the mind gets involved, where the balance gets, the habit can start because we really can't do something. We have no other way. No one's ever taught us any other way, or we're not aware of any other way to control it. So we might start cutting off ends of notes with our throat. Start just making everything a decrescendo. Start cutting off things with our tongue. All sorts of things like that. Because we don't have other things at place to counteract that type of control, grabbing it, to let it go, to build up our diaphragm support, for example, in releases. Now, here's an interesting situation. A person came in for their lesson, and there's a couple people who are doing this, and I'm sure many have experienced before. They're playing it out, da, 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 if it's separated. And they're really, ha, 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 ha. It's very huffy and puffy, the way they're actually articulating. And one person's really been trying to work on it, because we're saying, look, go ta, and that's fine, and not ta, there's nothing like that. But if there's a second or third or fourth one added, for sure, that's when it starts up. Da, because it's almost a feeling of having to take a breath and come down on it the same, instead of maintaining the support structure, da, 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 so ha, 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 doesn't have to start to happen. But if that's very habitualized over many years, not so easy in terms of quick speed to correct it. And this is where you start with what you can do, and you gradually find a place that you can do what you want to do in another kind of way that's probably better at the level of the machine, because it's more efficient, it's less uncomfortable, you have more options. Okay, but it's going to take time to do it. In this particular person's case, we'd start with playing one note, adding another note, okay, and then adding another note to really pinpoint when this huffing really kicks in. Sometimes it's after the second note if there's a whole string of notes. Sometimes if the consciousness knows there's only two, then there's a control. So now you have the situation of consciousness, awareness, involved in what you're doing. And now, wouldn't that be a marvelous habit to have as a friend? Consciousness of what we're doing, awareness of what we're doing. And this is why the slow practice is important, because it builds awareness. It builds coordination between your body and your mind. And oftentimes situations occur where the body and mind are not coordinated, as has been talked about. So, habit, friend or foe. Slow, diligent, taking your time, practicing your patience with yourself, vital for the hard habits to actually build another way of going on to support you in your playing and efforts to create the music you want to produce. There was something else I was going to say with this. Well, this could go on for a long time. Here's something interesting. With this particular person, with this huffing and puffing or the moving of the chest right near ta, 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 ta. Of course, it's not happening in legato. It's not happening in tenuto. It's when there's a space involved and the support cannot drop. So all of a sudden, when I was thinking about this and working with this person, I thought of the word doi. Now, the word doi, you can think doi, but that's not how it was coming to me. Doi is a sound, and you think about it. Doi, doi, doi. And I thought, wait a minute. And I had the person try it. The huffing and puffing in the chest must have cut by 50% right away. Isn't that fascinating? Doi, doi, doi. But if you think of it in terms of support, the E vowel, doi, especially if it's not exaggerated like do-e, but doi. Hear the E at the end of that? Doi, da, 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 da. It continued the support in the trajectory of the sound in a supported upward manner by just having that E sound in there. That's subtle. Da, 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 which might be easier for someone than just da, da, da right away. So at a certain point, you trust what might seem goofy or weird things coming to you because there might be something more intelligent than your habit life speaking. It might be your automatic systems. And I'm very thankful that I've never cut off that creative impulse of mine. And so I consider that creative impulse not throwing away that which seems goofy or not right away. Because I think that's my instinct trying to come and help me, picking up something that might seem even out subtly like, really? And then I'll realize, wait a minute, let's try this. And then the real reasons are revealed and confirmed when something happens in the direction that we've been shooting for. So don't throw every idea out. That might seem a little off. Not everything is in the textbooks. And so I'm very, very thankful for my friend, that instinct, and the part of myself that wouldn't just shut that off, because it's a real friend. So, habit, friend or foe? Take a look, try, discover.